2:48 Israel Standard Time. Second day of Chol Moed. That is for Israel people. Daf Yomi. Daf Yomi, tractate Makot. Makot het. Makot, page 8a, top of the page with the words Ve'amar Rabbi Yitzchak Rabbi Yosef Amar Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz Ubeit Shammai Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Kiva Kula Tzvir Lahu Yesh Egel Mikro Hainu Dekam Alahu Ve'oid. But doesn't Rabbi Yitzchak, son of Rabbi Yosef, say that Rabbi Yochanan says that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz and Beit Shammai and Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Akiva all hold that the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative, and not the manner in which it is written. How can Rav Chia bar Ashi ascribe Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's ruling to the contrary opinion? The Gemara answers, that is the reason that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said to the rabbis, and furthermore, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said to them, if the tradition of the manner in which the verses in the Torah are written is authoritative, that supports my interpretation of the verse. If not, there is an additional proof. Amar Rav Papa, Mandishda, Visa, Ledikla, Viatar, Tamre, Viazul Tamre, Uketul, Banu Lemachloket, Derabi Verabanan, Pshita, Mahu Litema, Yakoho, Kohodami, Kamash Melan. Rav Papa said, in the case of one who cast a clod of earth onto a palm tree, and he severed dates from the tree, and the dates went upon a person and killed him. Very unlikely, probably never happened. But anyway, he threw earth on a palm tree, and the dates fell and killed someone. We have arrived at the dispute between Yehuda Hanasi and the rabbis in a case where one was splitting wood and a wood chip flew through the air and killed a person. In that case, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi deems him liable to be exiled, and the rabbis deem him exempt from exile. Yomar asks, isn't that obvious? The cases are identical. What novel element is Rav Papa introducing? The Gemara answers, the parallel between the cases drawn by Rav Papa is necessary, lest you say that these severed dates were not propelled by the force of his action, but are like an item propelled by a force generated by the force of his action. And even Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi would concede that in that case he is exempt from exile. Rav Papa teaches us that the dates are considered to have been severed by the force of his action. Ela koach kocho l'Rabbi heichi mishkachas la kigoin dishda bisa u'mechaya legirma v'yaz legirma chaya lekavasa v'yatar tamri v'azun tamri ketul. The Gemara asks, but according to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, how can you find circumstances of a force generated by the force of his action where he would be exempt from exile? The Gemara answers, it can be found in a case where one cast a clod of earth and it struck a branch of the palm tree. And the branch, propelled by the clod, proceeded to strike a cluster of dates and sever the dates from the branch they were on, and the dates proceeded to kill a person. This concludes the Talmud on the Mishnah. New Mishnah. Hazoy regem reshus harabim mehorag harise goyle. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov oimer im mekeshi yatzeta avim yadoi hoi tzelas roish v'kim lahayz aparto. The Mishnah says, one who threw a stone into the public domain and killed a person is exiled. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, if after the stone left his hand, the other person placed his head out into the public domain and received a blow from the stone, he is exempt. As when he cast a stone into the public domain, there was no one there. זרק את האבן לחצרו והרג. אם יש רשות לניזק להיכנס לשם גולה, ואם לאו אינו גולה, שנאמר ואשר יבוא את רעהו ביער. מה היער? רשות לניזק ולמזיק להיכנס לשם. אף כל רשות לניזק ולמזיק, אף כל רשות לניזק ולמזיק להיכנס לשם. יצא חצר בת בעל הבית שאין רשות לניזק ולמזיק להיכנס לשם. In the case of one who threw the stone into his courtyard and killed a person, if the victim had permission to enter into there, the murderer is exiled, but if not, he's not exiled, as it is stated with regard to the cities of refuge, and as one who goes with his neighbor into the forest, Deuteronomy 19 verse 5, from which it is derived just as with regard to a forest. The victim and the assailant both have equal permission to enter there, so too with regard to all places that the victim and the assailant have permission to enter there, the killer is liable. This serves to exclude the courtyard of the homeowner, where the victim and the assailant do not both have permission to enter there. Since the victim had no right to enter his courtyard, the unintentional murderer is exempt from exile. Abba Shaul Omer, Ma chatav hazeit im reshus, av kol reshus, yatsa ha'av hamaket beno, ve'av ha'odeh et hamido, u'shliach beit din. Abba Shaul says another halacha can be derived from that verse, just as the cutting of wood that is mentioned in the verse is optional, so too all those liable to be exiled are examples of cases where the unintentional murderer was engaged in an activity that is optional. This serves to exclude a father who strikes his son, and a teacher who oppresses his student, and an agent of the court deputized to flog transgressors. If in the course of performing the mitzvah with which they are charged, they unintentionally murder the son, the student, or the person being flogged, respectively, they are exempt. And that's the end of that's the Mishnah. Gemara says, Reshus Rabim Mezidhu Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak Besoiser es kois loi boilei nenyoinei Besoiser es kois v'lailo Laila nami boilei nenyoinei. The Mishnah teaches one who threw a stone into the public domain and killed a person is exiled. The Gemara asks, if he threw a stone into the public domain, why is he exiled? He is an intentional murderer. He knows that there are generally people in the public domain and is aware that he is likely to harm someone with the stone. Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak says the reference in the Mishnah is not to one who threw a stone for no reason. Rather, it is a case where one is demolishing his wall and one of the stones struck a person. The Gemara counters that too is intentional, as he should have examined the other side of the wall to determine if there was anyone there. The Gemara answers, it is the case where one is demolishing his wall at night, when passers-by are scarce. The Gemara asks, at night too, he is required to examine the other side of the wall to determine if there is anyone there, as although it is uncommon, people are apt to walk through a public domain at all hours. V'soy ser es koisoy le'ashpa. Ha'ashpa echinami. Ishchichi ba'arabim poshehu. V'ilo shchichi ba'arabim anusu. The Gemara answers, the reference in the Mishnah is to a case where one demolishes his wall into a scrap heap, where there is no reasonable expectation to find anyone there, as it is located out of the way. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of this scrap heap? If it is frequented by the multitudes because it is utilized as a bathroom, he is negligent. If it is not frequented by the multitudes, although it is a public domain in the sense that it is not private property, he is a victim of circumstances beyond his control, as there was no reason to consider the possibility that someone was there. Amarav Papa lo itzricha ela ashpa suya lipana ispa v'laylo ve'ein asuya lipana ispa b'vayoyim. V'yisev posher lavhai deha'ena asuya lipanos ba'bayom ones nami lo havi deha'ika demikre v'yativ. Rav Papa said it is necessary to state this halacha only in the case of a scrap heap that is utilized for people to defecate there at night, but it is not utilized for people to defecate there during the day. But it happens on occasion that one will sit there and defecate during the day. One who demolishes his wall into the scrap heap during the day is neither negligent, as the scrap heap is not utilized for people to defecate there during the day, nor is he a victim of circumstances beyond his control, as it happens on occasion that one will sit there and defecate during the day, which he should have considered. Therefore, his status is that of an unintentional murderer who is liable to be exiled. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer v'chule Tanu Abananu Matzeh Prat Lemamtzi Et Atzmoi Nikan Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Im Mishiyotzoev Miyadoy Oitziano Es Rosho V'Kibla Patu. The Mishnah teaches that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, if after the stone left his hand, the other person placed his head out into the public domain and received a blow from the stone, he is exempt. The Gemara cites a related braita. The sages taught that it is written, and the blade displaces from the wood and finds his neighbor and he dies. Deuteronomy 19 verse 5, from which it is inferred, and finds umatzah, and finds. This serves to exclude one who presents himself and is thereby killed by the stone. From here, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, if after the stone left his hand, the other person placed his head out into the public domain and received a blow from the stone, the murderer is exempt. Lememra de matzah mikaramashma uraminu matzah prat namatzui shlo yimkor b'rachayim v'goyim v'koroiv v'rav yigol yafet. The Gemara asks, is that to say that the term and finds indicates an item that was there initially prior to the incident in question. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from that which is written with regard to one who seeks to redeem an ancestral field that he sold. And he acquires the means and finds sufficient funds for his redemption. Leviticus 25:26, the term "and finds" serves to exclude one who, in order to accrue funds to redeem his field, sells a field that was found in his possession when he originally sold the field. It means that he may not sell land that he owns in a distant place and redeem land that he owns in a proximate place, or sell a low-quality tract of land and redeem with the funds accrued from that sale of high-quality land. One may not exploit his right to redeem his land for his own advantage. This Braita indicates that the term "and find" indicates an item that was not there at the time but presents itself later. Amar Rava. Rava says, okay. Amar Rava, hechad min dekara hasamayna dekara. Hasmayna dekara masamid luyadai di vastiga yadoi. Ma vizigyo hashdaf matzana mashta. Hachabayna miyana dekara matza dumya diyar. Ma yarmi de jasya mikora af. Umatza nami midei de isa mikora. Rava said, this is not difficult, as here, with regard to exile, the term is interpreted in keeping with the context of the verse. And there, with regard to the redemption of land, the term is interpreted in keeping with the context of the verse. There, the term is interpreted in keeping with the context of the verse. The term "and finds" is similar to the phrase that precedes it, "and he acquires the means." Just as the meaning of the phrase "he acquires the means" is that he acquires the means from now, and he had had he possessed the means beforehand, he would not have sold his ancestral field at all. So too, the meaning of the term "and finds" is also that he finds sufficient funds from now and no earlier. Here, with regard to exile, the term is interpreted in keeping with the context of the verse, as the term "and finds" is similar to a forest, just as a forest is an entity that is there initially. So too, the term "and finds" also is referring to an entity that is there initially. Amar lehahu merabanan leravo mimai dimacha tavas eitzim dereshus dima macha tavas eitzim suka machtavas eitzim maracha afilu hachi amar rachman liglei Amar le kevan diim matzah chatuv ve'eno chotev lav mitzvah hashanami lav mitzvah. The Mishnah teaches one who throws a stone, etc. Abba Shaul derives from the verse, "and when one goes with his neighbor into the forest," Deuteronomy 19:5, just as the cutting of wood mentioned in the verse is optional, so too all those liable to be exiled are in cases where the unintentional murderer was engaged in an activity that is optional. One of the sages said to Rava, "From where do you know that the derivation is from the cutting of wood for a purpose that is optional? Perhaps the derivation is from the cutting of wood for the purpose of building a sukkah, or from cutting wood for the arrangement of wood on the altar, both of which are obligatory, since they are mitzvot. And even so, the merciful one states, 'Let him be exiled.'" Rava said to him, "Since if one found wood already cut, he does not cut other wood, as in that case, it is not a mitzvah to cut. Now, when there is no wood cut as well, Although he is cutting wood to facilitate fulfillment of a mitzvah, the act of cutting the wood itself is not a mitzvah. Rava raised an objection to the opinion of Rava. Ravina raised an objection to the opinion of Rava from a clause of the Mishnah that states that the example of the forest serves to exclude a father who strikes his son and a teacher who oppresses his student and an agent of the court, let us say, with regard to a father who strikes his son, since if the son was learned, it is not a mitzvah to strike him. Now, in the case where the son is not learned and the father strikes him to facilitate his education too, it is not a mitzvah, and therefore he should be exiled. Rava replied there, even though the son isn't learned, it is a mitzvah to strike him from time to time, as is written, chastise your son, and he will give you rest, and he will give delight to your soul. Okay? Maybe it means chastise with words. Why do you have to hit him? Okay, next. That's in Proverbs 29:17. Okay, next. Ahadar Amarava Lav Milsehi De Amri Vasher Yavo Azrei Oyar Mayar Di Bai Ayel Vi Boy Loyal Vi Sopidet Mitzvah Misagi Loyal Ayel. Rava then said, that which I said is nothing, and as there is a different proof from the verse that is not referring to cutting wood in fulfillment of mitzvah, is written, and as when one goes with his neighbor into the forest, based on the term asher, which indicates that the entering into the forest may or may not occur. What is the nature of the forest mentioned in the verse? It is a place where, if one wants to, he enters the forest, and if one wants to, he does not enter. And if it enters your mind that the verse is referring to one who cuts wood to fulfill a mitzvah, would it suffice if he did not enter the forest? He must enter the forest to fulfill the mitzvah. Amar le Ravada ba'ava kol lechadirsi v'asher di'i baihu ela mehata v'ish asher yitma v'lo yitchata ibai lo mitame met mitzvah lo sagi shelo mitame hachinami de patur. Rav Bar Ava said to Rabba, is it so that wherever the term asher is written in the Torah, it is a case where if he wants to, he does so, and if he's not referring to mitzvah, and it is not referring to mitzvah or obligation, if that is so, that which is written in a man who becomes impure, asher yitama, becomes impure and does not purify himself, that soul shall be excised, as he has impurified the sanctuary of God. Numbers 19:20 can be referring only to a case where if he wants to, he becomes impure, and if he wants to, he does not become impure. But in the case of a corpse with no one to bury it, where it would not suffice for him not to become impure in the process of burying it, would you say, so too he is exempt from the punishment of karet if he enters the temple in a state of impurity? So the answer, Shani has Rava replied, there is different, as the first states over there with regard to one impure with impurity imparted by a corpse.